Barry Miller, good Thursday afternoon to you. We're live in downtown Charlottesville in our building, the Macklin building. Literally a hop, skip, and a jump from the Charlottesville Police Department, the courthouses of Albemarle County, and the city of Charlottesville, the downtown mall less than 2 miles from the John Paul Jones Arena, Scott Stadium, the Dish where Brian O'Connor is pursuing a national championship, and less than 2 miles from where Ralph Sampson's Taproom is now officially closed. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot we're going to cover on today's show. This is the water cooler of conversation for Charlottesville, for Albemarle County, for Central Virginia, and it's the flagship show of the I Love CVille Network. It is the I Love CVille Show, a program that is loaded with content on a glorious day to be above the mud. Nyeem Hill, the reputed gang member, the convicted felon, the Dr. Richard Kimball of Charlottesville. Is it an insult to call him the Dr. Richard Kimball of Charlottesville? Dr. Richard Kimball was innocent in The Fugitive.
Odd.
He was innocent in The Fugitive. It was the damn one-armed man that caused all the trouble and all the brouhaha, and it was not the affable, the likable, the crafty, the MacGyver-like Dr. Richard Kimball. Nyeem Hill is no Dr. Richard Kimball. This guy's got a rap sheet longer than a CVS receipt.
He does not.
Jeez Louise, two-shot Judah Wickhauer. Giddy up and get ready. Today's show's going to be good. You don't think Nyeem Hill has a rap sheet longer than a CVS receipt? Do you see the charges he just picked up?
Yeah, but come on.
You don't think Nyeem Hill has a rap sheet longer than a CVS receipt?
Do you know all of the actual charges that he's been arrested for? I mean, we know that he was involved in something as a minor, where he was in a shootout. And
a shootout, a felon as a minor for a shootout.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not making judgments on what the shootout was. I'm just saying that's one of them.
Okay.
The other was, I believe, taking.
As a convicted felon going to a playground and live streaming himself with an AR-15 and a pistol in a playground. Before
that, as a minor, he was also, I believe, charged with taking possession of a stolen vehicle.
Stolen car.
And then there was the guns charge for being on the playground.
Keep going. Then he beat the bejeebus out of somebody in jail, basically destroyed someone's skull, fractured someone's orbital bone in a jailhouse brawl.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're at this point, the guy's 19. While Judah's standing up for this right here, ladies and gentlemen. Convicted felon because of a gun shootout like the OK Corral when he was a minor. Possession of a stolen vehicle while he's a minor.
Yeah.
Goes to a playground while he's an adult as a convicted felon. Decides to live stream himself, go Facebook Live with a AR-15 and a pistol. That makes a lot of sense. On a playground where kids like to go down the slide and climb the monkey bars and do the seesaw. Yeah. Let's live stream ourselves with an AR-15 and a pistol on the seesaw.
Yeah.
Okay. Go to the jail after live streaming yourself with an AR-15 and a pistol next to the seesaw. Him and two other guys hold pin a guy down, beat the bejeebus out of him.
Okay, but those are he hasn't actually gone to court for those charges yet.
Okay.
He's got what, 3?
Now he's facing these charges: eluding, obstruction, 2 felony counts of hit and run, a misdemeanor count of hit and run, reckless driving, disregarding a stop sign, and an inspection violation. Viewers and listeners, you be the judge. Does Nyeem Hill have a rap sheet that is longer than a CVS receipt? He just picked up the following charges: evading and eluding the police, obstruction, 2 felony counts of hit and run, jumped out of a Chevy Impala while it was still in drive, hit a Virginia State Trooper cruiser, misdemeanor count of hit and run, reckless driving, disregarding a stop sign, inspection violation. This rap sheet makes it a CVS receipt look small, like Elaine Bennis. I don't have a square to spare. Like Elaine Bennis and no squares to spare.
Potentially.
Judah Wickower.
If
Stand up for the reputed
if they make
gang
all
member.
those charges stick.
I will tell you this. Judge Worrell, we did an interview with Jim Hingley yesterday. Mm-hmm. We talked Nyeem Hill and Judge Worrell yesterday with Mr. Jim Hingley. If you didn't catch the interview we did with Commonwealth's Attorney Jim Hingley on yesterday's program, it's archived wherever you get your podcasting content and on ilovecville.com. It was an awesome interview. Mr. Hingley, I love you, man. We're lucky to have him in Albemarle County. Judge Worrell was lenient with his sentencing with Nyeem Hill. The leniency afforded Nyeem Hill will not be afforded to him next time before he's a judge.
I believe you're correct.
Nyeem Hill is going to spend a good portion of his life behind bars. And it's unfortunate, but it's the reality. And I'm going to ask some very straightforward questions for you, the viewer and listener. First, I want to give props as you rotate some lower thirds on screen. We're going to give some love to Charlottesville Sanitary Supply here in a matter of moments. We're going to talk Ralph Sampson's Taproom closing. We're going to talk a new restaurant opening in its Stead. Thank you, Webster.
A steed is a horse.
Stead. We're going to talk Albemarle County residents. You better cowboy up, pony up, and mount up, as Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen did in Young Guns 1 and Young Guns 2, because activists in Albemarle County are starting to ramrod or trying to ramrod housing down your throat. And we're going to ask the question, is Denver Riggleman going to run for higher office? We broke the news earlier in the week that Silverback Distillery has just hit the market for about $2.5 million, $2.6 million asking price. Was this move a strategic move to maybe raise some capital, drum up some capital, or to maybe take some priorities off plates to make a push for higher office? That's a question I'm going to answer on today's program. This is the first question I want to ask, ladies and gentlemen, and get ready to give Charlottesville Sanitary Supply some love here. When Nyeem Hill was on the lam, when he was running from the University Police Department, the Albemarle County Police Department, the Charlottesville Police Department, and Virginia State Troopers, 4 police departments. He was on the lam in the University Heights apartment complex, the Lewis Mountain neighborhood, rumored, scuttlebutted, speculated, hypothesized that he was on ground somewhere at the University of Virginia. Schools were on lockdown. UVA was on lockdown. Businesses were shuttered. Once the shelter in place and the lockdown was lifted, the messaging from the police was, we do not believe he is in the area anymore. He was arrested yesterday in Charlottesville. When police said he was not in the area anymore, and this was the University Police Department, Tim Longo's outfit that published the messaging, he is not in the area anymore. Was that intentionally vague messaging to breed security and confidence from the community? Or was it disingenuous messaging, considering Nyeem Hill and his CVS long rap sheet were apprehended yesterday in the city of Charlottesville? Okay, when they say he's not in the area anymore, was that he's not at U Heights? He's not on grounds at UVA? But yeah. He's enjoying a bagel at Bodo's on Preston Avenue. He's not on Ivy Road. He's not by the tennis courts at Snyder Tennis Courts, but he could be having some bacon wrap dates at Mas Tapas. He could be having a nice old fashioned at the Alley Light.
The options are truly endless.
He could be having some nice pretzels at the Mellow Mushroom. I mean, he is out of the area. He is not right now at the UVA School of Data Science. He is not on Alderman Road. But he very well could be having some enchiladas at the Guadalajara on Jefferson Park Avenue.
I mean, you got to build up your energy if you think you might be running again.
If you're on the lam, you better get a last meal in. This is like the last dinner here. Are the apostles around, Judah?
I don't know if we're talking about the same last dinner. Last dinner, last supper.
Was the messaging intentionally vague to breed community security, or is the messaging disingenuous, and should we question the optics of the messaging? I want to have that conversation.
Okay.
60 years in business, 60 plus years in business, Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, Judah, as we give them some love on East High Street, Charlottesville Sanitary Supply, John Vermillion, Andrew Vermillion. Online at charlottesvillesanitarysupply.com. Locally owned and operated, a business that you want to support, especially as the weather is getting warmer. Pool supplies, above ground pool, water health and quality, all your cleaning needs. The Vermillions are 3 generations strong, and this business is doing it the right way. charlottesvillesanitarysupply.com. You say it is not disingenuous messaging. First, we want to give the police the benefit of the doubt. First, I take that back. First, I want to say to the police, congratulations on apprehending Nyeem Hill. The Virginia State Police and the Albemarle County Police Department. Virginia State Police in the lead, the Albemarle County Police Department with some help. ACPD riding shotgun, Virginia State Police driving the effort. Nyeem Hill is in custody.
Yeah.
Nyeem Hill, I do not empathize with you, sir. I would anticipate you're going to spend a good portion of your life behind bars. And the leniency allocated or afforded to you by Judge Worrell is not a leniency that will be allocated to you this time around.
Likely won't be shown again.
I can say that with confidence and conviction. Now we head to the falling action of the story, the denouement. The climax of the story, Nyeem Hill apprehended, popped, caught, snagged, snared, netted, cuffed. Now the denouement. We unpack what we saw. I have a genuine question of why the messaging no longer in the area was used when he was in fact in the area. And that is a fair question. I then have this follow-up question. The lockdown and shelter in place, is that only lockdown and shelter in place strategy utilized with UVA students and UVA grounds? If Nyeem Hill had gone on the lam and done his best bad Santa version of Dr. Richard Kimball in the Belmont neighborhood or North Downtown or Pantops or Johnson Village or Fry Springs or Locust Avenue or Greenbrier, 10th and Page, Prospect, Star Hill or Preston, would there have been a lockdown or a shelter in place? Is the sole reason we had a lockdown or shelter in place because it was UVA and because we were fresh from Christopher Darnell Jones Jr., the former Virginia football player who triple homicided 3 other football players? Everyone should be asking these questions.
Not to mention the even more recent trouble with Justin Barber.
Was another reason. Great point, Judah Wickhauer, the Crozet killer. Did we have this lockdown because just a few days prior, the Crozet Gentle Giant tried to go on a killing spree, ended up murdering 2, and had an arsenal of weapons in his vehicle outside of a Harris Teeter in a shopping center in Sleepy and Safe, Crozet, Virginia. First, the language. How do you feel, viewers and listeners, when the shelter in place and the lockdown was lifted and the language utilized on the university Twitter account, which was then scaled and syndicated across other jurisdictional social media channels, that the Nyeem Hill character is no longer in the area? I'm very curious of your take on this, Judah.
I think that's fairly standard messaging for the end of a lockdown, end of a manhunt, end of a search, when they don't know where the suspect is. They say, we believe the suspect has left the area. It doesn't. There's no specific radius, I don't think, for that. What? Okay. If you think there is, tell me what area means. Is it a 10-mile radius? Is it a 10-mile diameter?
When we're told the convicted felon that may or may not have a gun on him, that led police on a high-speed chase, that jumped out of a moving vehicle, a Chevy Impala, while it was still in drive, and was literally Carl Lewising and Michael Johnsoning German Shepherds, helicopters, and drones. When we're told by police that he is no longer in the area, I take that to believe, I know my wife did, that he's not in Charlottesville.
I never thought that.
Okay, viewers and listeners, do you disagree? I'm very curious of how the community interpreted not in the area. Georgia Gilmer, Bill McChesney, what is your interpretation? Lauren and Ivy, Vanessa Parkhill, the Queen of Earlysville, Doug Dowdy of the Roanoke Times, Paul Johnson. Very curious of what your take. Go ahead, Judah.
I never thought that he'd left Charlotte. At least not by the end of the lockdown. I think I had always assumed by the language that we are fairly certain that he's not in any of these places that we've been searching for 4, 5, 6 hours, and we don't know where he is, so we're not going to keep you locked down. I think the whole thing was a bit overblown to begin with. As I've said before, there was more danger to people with the police chasing him than there would have been if they had just let him go and used flock to follow his movements. He also may have prevented him jumping out of the car and causing the whole lockdown in the first place. And that in itself, we don't know. I mean, you can allege that he's a dangerous individual because he's been in a gunfight and because he's owned guns and because he potentially brutalized someone in prison. But I don't think any of that leads to a conclusion that he's going to, grab someone and, I don't know, does anyone really think that he was about to, take a business or a home hostage?
Judah, I think you are doing your best to make a compelling case. And you present the facts of your case well. I will push back by saying someone who is on the cusp of losing his or her freedom and on the cusp of spending a significant amount of time in jail and behind bars is desperate to do anything.
Okay, but let's take this from the beginning. He didn't necessarily know that.
But you don't know that he did not know that. And this is what we're talking about, viewers and listeners. This is, and I asked Jim Hinchley this yesterday. The Commonwealth's attorney. Did Nyeem Hill know that he had pending charges over his head with the jailhouse brawl where he beat the hell out of somebody with the help of others and crushed someone's orbital bone. The man whose orbital bone he crushed literally had his skull crushed.
One of the bones in his skull.
Refused to testify in court against this guy.
Yeah.
Refused to testify in court. What Jude and I are deciding, or what we're bantering on, is did Nyeem Hill know that he faced more time in front of a judge over that jailhouse brawl?
I would argue if he did know.
Mr. Hinchley said he was not sure of that answer. That's what he said in the interview yesterday.
And you're right. He may or may not have known, but I would argue that if he did know, or if he did think that the cop was pulling him over because it knew who he was, then it's even more of a what's the word I'm looking for? It's even more problematic to go chasing him across the city. Here you have someone
you're changing the point here. The point is whether he knew this or not. If he knew he faced these charges, more time in a courtroom, after the judge had already afforded him leniency in the initial sentencing, he knew he wasn't going to get the leniency again. This is a guy in that when he got the leniency from Judge Worrell, the Daily Progress reports, he was smiling ear to ear like a Cheshire cat, like a kitty cat with a sleeve of Ritz crackers and a tin of Cheese Whiz at his disposal. Like he got away with something. Okay, let me ask you a question. If you're in society, if you're on Market Street, if you're on Preston Avenue, and you and a couple of your buddies find another man that you don't like, and you and two of your buddies, one of your buddies grabs one of his arms, the other buddy grabs the other of his arm, and they pin him back, and then you and your buddies beat the hell out of this man and crush his skull, and you do it while police officers are watching you. Do you know, yes or no, that you're going to get in trouble for this, especially when you've already been a convicted felon?
Yeah.
Okay. So with that basic common sense, why would we not think that Nyeem Hill was very aware that he was going to go to jail for a very long time for beating the bejeebus out of somebody in jail when police officers and cameras were watching him?
That's still an assumption.
That is not an assumption.
He got out of prison. If nobody told him that there were charges against him,
the system effed up with not knowing what was going on, with communication, with notification. Nyeem Hill knew that he beat somebody almost to death in jail when there are cameras and police officers watching. He had to know his time with freedom was limited, and that's why he led the police on a high-speed chase. He jumped out of a moving car.
Okay, but that only serves to highlight my point. If you think he's desperate, that's even more of a reason not to chase him.
Okay.
Call the police, get on the flock cameras, follow his car, rather than causing him to potentially risk who knows how many lives driving across the city, trying to evade the police, and then jumping out of his car. What have you accomplished? Now, if you get someone immediately on those flock cameras to follow where his license plate is going, you potentially remove him driving.
Judah, I completely in agreement. What you're saying is common sense there, but that's not the conversation. The conversation we're having was the messaging vague to breed community security or community peace of mind when they said he was out of the area, or was the messaging disingenuous?
I still think it's just
Or was the messaging strategic to try to trick Nyeem Hill to say that we were off his scent and otherwise trying to find him that way? I will say this.
It seems an odd thing to do.
I will say this, that my wife And mothers, all mothers and fathers, I'm not even going to just say mothers, parents everywhere, while this was happening, were asking the question, out of the area? What do you mean he's out of the area? Is he in my backyard? Is he in the neighborhood? Is he in Greene County? Is he in Earlysville? Is he right down the street? What does out of the area mean? Raise your hand in the air and wave them around like you just don't care. But if you thought out of the area was vague. We'll hear from some of the viewers and listeners. Let's go to John Blair, number 1 in the family. His photo on screen, please. Number 2 in the family, John Blair. Very curious to hear what some of the other viewers and listeners have to say here. Jerry, I can see the validity in both you and Judah's interpretation of the area. But I do think Judah needs to take into account what happened in both public and private schools in response to the incident. If schools all over the area are in semi-lockdown, then I think out of the area would mean to parents that he was out of the city of Charlottesville. 1,000% agree. My kid's school, his day as a first grader changed in that he was not allowed outside.
Right.
St. Anne's Belfield really was impacted by this. Because St. Anne's Belfield, in particular its upper school campus, is right next to where this guy was starting his Dr. Richard Kimball escapade. Excursion. What are your thoughts, viewers and listeners? Georgia Gilbert, her photo on screen. No longer in the area could have meant that they had reliable info he had gotten a ride and was gone from the area of the lockdown. That's what she says. Mm-hmm. She also says they could not put the entire city on lockdown shelter in place. Agreed. That leads me to my next question. Do the lockdowns only happen around the University of Virginia? With policing strategy, I have it's a genuine question. This is a Colonel Reeves question, a Chief Longo question, a Chief Kotchis question. Virginia State Police, is the lockdown strategy only going to happen around the University of Virginia?
And by extension, someplace like
public schools,
like
private schools and public schools.
I meant the neighborhoods that got locked down.
Yeah, I would say that's because
they were close to
because they were adjacent.
UVA?
Adjacent to where he got out.
I mean, heaven forbid we should find out. We should have to test that theory in.
Amen, brother. That's why I don't think we'll ever get that answer.
But I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think if there were.
See, Kevin Yancey agrees with us. His photo on screen. Kevin Yancey says yes. He says it's the concentration of people warranted the lockdown. UVA is liable for students on grounds. It was err on the side of caution. All the other areas are residential areas. If he had wanted a confrontation, it would have been with the single officer. Philip Dow in Scottsville, based on the pending charges, he was in a desperate situation and could have done anything that would risk someone's life. I agree, Philip Dow. I think the police did the right thing locking down. This man was a desperate man. This is much more desperate than Dr. Richard Kimball shaving his beard and dyeing his hair and wearing some flannel clothes. Richard Kimball was innocent. Nyeem Hill beat the bejeebus out of somebody in jail in front of cameras, in front of police officers. Nyeem Hill streams himself on social media with an AR-15 on a playground as a convicted felon.
Do you know that he did that in front of cameras and police?
You don't think there's cameras and police in jail, Judah?
Jerry, if there were, do you think they would have to rely on the person who was beaten up for his testimony?
Does the testimony of somebody who has his orbital bone destroyed, does it not strengthen a case?
It certainly does, but if
they were going to continue pursuing the legal action associated with destroying someone's orbital bone, and the guy whose face is half flat is not willing to testify, but they're still going to allocate court and justice resources to it, they probably have some kind of evidence, do they not?
Yeah, but you're talking about evidence that is so... If you've got cops that viewed it and video footage, I mean, why would you even need the
The same reason you want a motive. The same reason you want the smoking gun. And the same reason you want the bad guy to say he did the bad thing.
Okay.
It's how it works.
I still think you're running on a lot of assumptions.
I don't think I'm running on a lot of assumptions. Respectfully, I disagree with you, sir. I do not think I'm running on a lot of assumptions here.
Okay.
3 people held another man down and beat them almost to his death.
I'm not
in jail.
I'm not
in
disagreeing
jail.
with you, but
In the jail down Avon.
I'm not sure why you're making that statement as though it explains everything.
I'm making that statement because the guy who led the police on a wild goose chase knew that his freedom was at risk, and that's why he led the police on a wild goose chase. If it was only about a dead inspection sticker, he would have pulled the car over and said, "This is my girlfriend's car. It's her dead inspection sticker. We'll pay the fine and get the inspection changed at Settle Tire on Preston, and then I'm going to go drink a stein of Minuteman 3-Notch while I'm waiting for Big George to change my inspection."
Okay, but what point are you trying to make?
My point is he knew his freedom was at risk, and that's why he jumped out of a moving car.
After being chased across the city.
You're making my point for me.
What is your point?
My point is
that he was dangerous?
Oh my God! Do you not think this man was dangerous?
No,
hold on. This is crazy here. I need to ask you a very straightforward question.
The cops spent.
Can I ask you a straightforward question?
Yes.
Sincerely, straightforward question. When Nyeem Hill was pulled over for an inspection sticker, and they found out it was Nyeem Hill that was in the Impala.
We don't know that they found that out until after he jumped out of the car. In fact, I'm pretty sure they didn't know who it was.
Do you think the police thought he was dangerous? Do you think he was dangerous?
I think he was dangerous because he was running from the police. If they had stopped following him, they could have followed him with the flock cameras, and likely he wouldn't have been driving dangerously through the city trying to evade the police.
Do you think Nyeem Hill is dangerous?
No, I don't think he's dangerous.
Okay, I need you to say that again. You do not think Nyeem Hill is dangerous?
They let him out of prison. Of course, he had not been charged, or he had been charged but not sentenced.
Do you think Nyeem Hill is dangerous?
No, I don't. Okay. How many days has he been on the lam? And was anyone expecting him to, take a family hostage? No, I don't think he's dangerous.
Kevin Yancey, yes, at the time he was a wanted person. Yes, he was a wanted person at the time. You do not think Nyeem Hill is dangerous. Then there we go.
I think the danger was in making him desperate. That was far more dangerous, whether it was vehicular homicide or, trying to, use someone as a shield. Barring those things, he did exactly what I would have expected him to do. He went home or he went to a friend's house, and the cops eventually caught up with him.
I respectfully disagree with you.
That's fair.
I respectfully disagree with you. If there's a guy who's a wanted criminal, a wanted convicted felon with a history of gun crime, I want the police to do whatever they can to apprehend that person in the moment.
Even if it means the lives of innocent people?
The state trooper that chased him did not anticipate he was going to jump out of a moving Chevy Impala while it was still going. And then the state trooper that chased him, once he jumped out of that Chevy Impala while it was still going and called for backup, and 4 police departments responded, including German Shepherds, including drones, and a helicopter. Probably if this happened 10 times, 9.5 times, 9 times out of 10, this guy gets caught. This is the anomaly, not the norm.
Okay, but you're making...
All right, we got to move on to other topics here. We got to move on to other topics here. I'm not trying to cut you short here. We've spent 45 minutes on this, and we have other stuff to cover here.
It's an interesting topic.
It's a very interesting topic. It's a very interesting topic. I'm curious of what your thoughts are, viewers and listeners. John adds this, Jerry, that's a good point. Again, my child's school off of Preston didn't have an official lockdown, but the kids were told they could not go outside during recess that day, and we received an email from the school about the situation. So it wasn't just schools in the immediate vicinity of where the accident with the state police occurred. Lab school is quite a hike from the area. Our son's school is quite a hike from that area as well, and it was the same response for him as well. Bill McChesney, the two other jailhouse inmates that held down the man before crushing his skull, we don't have the information on what has happened to them with the justice system. I'm still floored that you don't think that Nyeem Hill is dangerous. A man who is tied to a shootout in the city.
When he was a minor.
He's 19. When he was a minor was just a couple years ago.
Okay, but that shootout, as with many of the shootouts that we've heard about recently, were they ever about people like you and me? In most of those cases, it was gang members shooting at each other, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't expect him.
Judah, bullets go stray.
Yes, they do. We have
bullets don't always hit who they're intended to hit.
That's true. We have one incident though of him doing this, and we have no reason to think that he's going to go blasting a school.
Judah, you would offer this man the leniency of
I'm not offering him leniency.
Of Mother Teresa.
No, seriously? I'm not saying that he shouldn't be charged for any of the things that he's currently being charged for. Never said that.
Unbelievable. Next headline. What's the next headline?
City says no tax increase. Residents say otherwise.
Marlene Jones sent us this message, and I have a lot of respect for Marlene Jones. She said, please stop referring to the 2025 city budget as not raising taxes. It is a tax increase. They did not raise the tax rate, but the assessments increased 8.81% on our homes.
Yeah.
Commercial assessments jumped 6% and change.
Yeah.
She makes a really good point. Sam Sanders, in his release and his proposed budget, and it was picked up by old media, legacy media, who's watching this show, every single one, Sam Sanders touted the fact that there are no tax increases. And he did that coincidentally with timing. It's not coincidence, it's budget season, so now the jurisdictions are thinking about their budgets. But he did it at the same time where the county executive, Jeff Richardson, was touting the fact that there was going to be a 4-cent real estate tax rate increase. So for once, the city of Charlottesville looked like it was a little bit more fiscally conservative with its spending compared to its next-door neighbor, Albemarle County, that wants to raise the tax rate, or the proposal is a 4-cent tax rate increase. Marlene says, hey, if the assessments go up, we're still paying more taxes, okay? And make sure that's clear to the viewers and listeners, because you got a lot of people that watch and listen to you. And she's right.
Yeah.
And she is right. So I want to make sure that the trail is peppered. Even though city manager is saying taxes are not increasing, that's not exactly right. And as we learned with the police messaging with Nyeem Hill being on the lam, where he's out of the area, and frankly, he was just half a mile away. A mile.
Come on.
It's a 10.2 square mile city.
If we're going to argue semantics, you could easily say that he was out of the city until he came back at some point and was caught here. Okay, there's no evidence that he didn't or did.
You're saying this is what Nyeem did.
No, I'm not saying anything. I'm saying you're making assumptions.
We're dealing with a man who is a convicted felon. As a convicted felon, thought it was a smart idea to bring an AR-15 and a pistol to a children's playground and stream to the world, create evidence that he has a gun when he can't have a gun as a convicted felon. This is not a smart human being.
Okay.
He's not a smart human being.
I'm not going to argue
For me,
or against his intelligence.
Maybe it fits the acumen for him to, let's leave UVA grounds in Lewis Mountain in the University Heights neighborhood. I'm gonna get out of the area. I'm gonna go to Sioux Falls, but then I'm gonna make my way back to Charlottesville, where I'm a known and wanted man.
It's a long walk.
Come on, Sam Sanders. Messaging matters. And when you say no tax increases, residents have said that's not exactly fair because the assessments have gone up. And we're going to back what the viewers and listeners of our show have passing on to us and paper the trail. The next headline, what do you got? Judah Wickhauer, jack of all trades. I'm genuinely enjoying the back and forth here, Judah.
Next up, we've got a question about Denver Riggleman.
Look, I'm texting back and forth with Denver Riggleman. Is you got the lower third on screen? I think we're very near having Denver Riggleman on the show.
Nice. The only thing I could find was from January 1st.
And January 1st?
Former Virginia Congressman Denver Riggleman is considering a 2025 run to be Virginia's next governor or lieutenant governor. He said that he would be running as an independent this time. And that's pretty much all we've got.
We break the news 48 hours ago right here on the I Love CVille show that Silverback Distillery is for sale. Tallheimer's Jenny Stoner and Matt Green have the listing. Matt Green and Jenny Stoner are pros. I hope they hear what I just said. They do a damn good job. I'd say if any commercial broker or residential broker in the Central Virginia market, Matt Green is bench pressing more than all of them. Dude is a tank. I mean, he is a unit. Matt Green is a physical unit. Legitimate unit. I'm going to ask a straightforward question, and I would ask Denver Riggleman this question. And I think Denver's going to hear this because this show is watched and seen by a lot of people. Are they selling Silverback Distillery for somewhere between $2 and $3 million? Because they're raising capital for Riggleman to make a push for the governor's mansion.
It could also be a case of him not wanting this to be seen as a conflict of interest.
Why would this be a conflict of interest, being a small business owner?
If he owns a business in Virginia and becomes the governor of Virginia?
As opposed to many other governors who have owned businesses in Virginia and have been governors?
I'm just...
There's nothing wrong with being a business owner and being a governor.
Okay, I'm just speculating.
Nothing wrong with being a business owner and being a governor.
Okay.
The current governor is the former CEO of the Carlyle Group. He's got a net worth of hundreds of millions of dollars. Would we want the governor of Virginia to be a 1% of 1%, someone that's got hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of net worth? Or would we want the CEO of the Commonwealth of Virginia to be somebody who is a small business owner? For me, I put my hand in the air for the governor of Virginia to be much closer to the populace and socioeconomic status than the opposite end of the spectrum. And that's not shade on Youngkin. I'm not throwing shade on Youngkin. Youngkin won that mansion because Terry McAuliffe is a bonehead. Not once, but twice, 3 times, he told Virginians that parents should not have an active and influential role with their children's public school education. And Terry McAuliffe, he said it once, then he said it a second time, then he said it a third time. That's Three Stooges, dude. Some of the stupidest optics from a politics standpoint I've ever seen was when Terry McAuliffe said, moms and dads, you might be voting for me, but you shouldn't have a role in what your kids are doing in public schools. You shouldn't have a say. You shouldn't have any influence. That's an effing insult to parents. And McAuliffe did that 3 times. That's why Youngkin won. McAuliffe doesn't do that 3 times, Youngkin doesn't win. McAuliffe, Youngkin, or Riggleman, Riggleman's way more electable than those 3. Way more electable. Ask the question. We're in March. Why is Riggleman selling Silverback for somewhere between $2 and $3 million? Also an opportunity to sell, also trying to sell the equipment he's got over there. He's trying to raise capital. Is he raising a capital? Is he raising capital for the push? One last push. one last push for the governor's mansion. A lot of people don't know this, but didn't Denver Riggleman already at one time run for governor? Or was it lieutenant governor in the past? As a Republican, he ran for his party's nomination in the 2017 governor's election, but withdrew from the race. He was elected to the House of Representatives in 2018 as a congressman. He lost a ridiculous race to Bob Good in a drive-through party convention that was rigged. I mean, that was utterly ridiculous how he lost to Bob Good.
No doubt.
That was COVID collateral damage, how he lost to Bob Good. Folks didn't like that Riggleman was the officiant of a same-sex marriage and the Republican Party in Backwoods, Virginia. And Backwoods, Virginia said, "Oh, this guy was an officiant of a gay wedding. We got to figure out a way to oust him from the 5th District. And how we're going to oust him from the 5th District? Well, we can't beat him. Let's rig the game." And how do they rig the game? A drive-through convention during COVID.
Yeah.
Minimize who could get involved with determining who was going to be the Republican nominee. And in the 5th District, it's the Republicans. It's much like Charlottesville with the Democratic primary. The Republican primary determines it in the 5th.
Yeah.
Because the district is super red.
Right.
I'll ask Denver Riggleman when he comes on the show. You heard it here on the I Love CVille show 48 hours ago. We break the news about Silverback Distillery on the market for sale. I think it's a effing steal. If it's somewhere in the mid-2s to buy 9 acres with all this equipment, all this water supply, enough power to keep a data center alive. Someone buy Jenny and Matt, me talking about this listing, Jenny Stoner and Matt Green, steak, Aberdeen Barn, steak dinners on you, martinis, old fashions, and I'll take Johnny Pritzloff's Rivian as well. That's probably a little asking too much right there. That's probably not eating into some of the commission. I mean, you're probably talking, say, $2.5 million, 2.5, let's just say, 3%, 75,000 right there. You had to divide that by 2. All right, you guys are walking with like 25, 30K right there. Somewhere between 20, 30K right there. Maybe a little over 30K. I'll take the prime rib and the old fashions. And some of that cheese dip with the pretzels at the barn. I love that cheese dip with the pretzels for what I'm doing here, building buzz for this listing. This is a steal of a listing. A steal of a listing, folks. You couldn't build this out today for this number. You couldn't build it out today for the number. This is a governor's race. This is a governor's run waiting to happen. Heard it here. Next headline, what do you got?
Let's see. Ralph Sampson closing the Taproom.
That's breaking news from the I Love CVille show on the I Love CVille Network right before the show started. Gina, you and I are breaking news left and right. You're doing a hell of a job. Breaking news left and right here. Ralph Sampson's no more.
It's a shame.
Who said this was going to happen? Who said this was going to happen?
I don't know. Did you?
There's the tape to back it up. I said when this business opened and they were going to sell cheesesteaks for $24 a cheesesteak. I went there one night after playing squash with some buddies over the Borsad. We decide to go on a Thursday night to eat some cheesesteak, watch some basketball and have some beers, get some food. I got a cheesesteak, I had a cold beer and some fries, and my bill was $40. A cheesesteak, a cold beer and some fries, and my bill after tip was $40. It was almost insulting. But then I started thinking about the economics of running this business. The place is massive. There was labor everywhere, staff everywhere. It is the most expensive rent of any restaurant in the city of Charlottesville. It's an island pad in Barracks Road Shopping Center. Are there other more expensive rent options in the area? Yes. Look at Stonefield. Look at Stonefield. But Stonefield's in Albemarle County. City of Charlottesville, most expensive rent, that spot right there. It was never going to work. The economics were never going to work. And then they had weird hours. They weren't open all the time. They were closing after UVA sporting events had just ended and not welcoming the thousands, if not tens of thousands of people that were in the area to celebrate a Virginia win or to drown their sorrows after a Virginia loss inside their restaurant.
That is odd.
It was so odd. And put the next lower third on screen as we're breaking more news for you. Ralph Sampson's Taproom is being rebranded by its ownership group, and I'll let you know about the ownership group in a matter of moments, as Milk and Honey. And Milk and Honey is a brand the ownership group is trying to turn into a multiple unit brand. Milk and Honey is going to sell chicken and waffles, shrimp and grits, and mimosa towers. Jesus Christ, how many chicken and waffles and shrimp and grits do you have to sell to cover the overhead at this location? I mean, you're going to have to sell these chicken and waffles at damn near close to $30 a unit.
And how many other places in Charlottesville and Albemarle already sell
chicken and waffles?
Chicken and waffles, shrimp and grits, and mimosas.
Yeah. Now, no one sells mimosa towers, so these towers better be
sells towers,
these towers better be towers that are taller than Jeff Levine's Violent Crown apartment tower, 18 stories that he's planning next to the Code building.
What is a mimosa tower?
A mimosa tower is a tower of mimosas.
That's it?
Yes.
They're going to stack a bunch of glasses together and...
It's a tower of mimosas. What is a mimosa tower?
It seems wasteful.
It is a tower of mimosas. You've seen
That's it?
Yes.
I thought it would be like, I don't know, like one of those cheese fountains or something. It would be like something that dispenses mimosas, not a bunch of stacked glasses.
Tower of mimosas.
Well, that's boring.
If it was a fountain, it would be a mimosa fountain.
Okay.
It's a tower of mimosas. These chicken and waffles better be gold-plated chicken breasts. And the waffles better have lottery tickets underneath them, because you're going to be selling them for $30 a pop to cover the overhead here. Now let me tell you about the man behind it. This is a very smart man, very wealthy man, very intelligent man, very successful man, extremely successful man. It's the Thompson Hospitality Group. The founder is Warren Thompson. Warren Thompson. He's a Darden School of Business graduate, 1983. This guy knows what he's doing with restaurants. 14 restaurant brands in 65 locations. He owns the Ridley and he owns Matchbox. The Ridley's in that hotel on West Main Street.
Yeah.
Matchbox is in Stonefield. So this guy is not opposed to doing high rent districts. I'm going to tell you right now, I can't see how the Ridley is making any money in that hotel on West Main Street. I just don't see how the Ridley is making any money. Maybe Matchbox is making some money. Both those rents have got to be out of the wazoo, only to be surpassed by the rent at Ralph Sampson's Tap House.
Yeah.
14 restaurant brands in 65 locations, in 1983 Darden School of Business graduate Warren Thompson. I will say this, I've been in this community for 25 years. We make a lot of our living in real estate and helping businesses grow market share, either through brokerage, through funding, through just improving their strategic position in some capacity. That's how we make our living. It's not this. We just happen to enjoy doing this, and frankly, doing this brings us a lot of deals, creates a lot of deal flow doing this. Charlottesville is very different than other markets. And it's very different than other markets because we have A, way too many restaurants. B, not enough labor to work at these restaurants. C, the labor we do have is expensive because there's not much of it. D, the weeknight and the weekday traffic that is supposed to support these restaurants is just not prolific, folks. You'll have business on Thursday, you'll have business on Friday, you'll have business on Saturday, and some of Sunday fun day. But the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday business is meager at best, crumbs. And that's why you're seeing so many fail. And then you're going to throw in these other headwinds. The consumer of today, and certainly the consumer of tomorrow, got trained during COVID and the pandemic to order through third-party delivery and eat their pork chops and their ribeyes and their pastas and their tacos and their burgers and their hot dogs and their tighty-whities and their bathrobes and their Victoria's Secret while sitting on their couch and streaming Netflix. And it's a sad state of affairs, but that's a fact. The world is a-changing. I don't see how you create a model that supports this kind of rent. And Federal Realty is the landlord behind this Island Pad and Barracks Road shopping center, a publicly traded company. Federal Realty is not going to offer a lot of leeway when it comes to rent on this unit, because then they would have to start negotiating with all the other tenants that are in that shopping center. All right, 135 here. Next headline, what do you got?
Next up, activists and housing in Albemarle County.
Is this the last headline?
Yes, it is.
If you're not reading the tea leaves, if you're not following the I Love CVille show, first I would encourage you every single day to wake up and to plan your entire day from 12:30 to 1:30 around the I Love CVille show. If you're not waking up in the morning and saying at 12:30 p.m., I need to be listening to what Judah Wickhauer and Jerry Miller have to say on the I Love CVille show and the guests they are interviewing, then you're not understanding what is really happening in the Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and Central Virginia community. Period. Period. It is an unabashed, unfiltered look into economics, business, government, real estate, activism, and everyday life in Central Virginia. Period. 12:30 to 1:30. Albemarle County is being infiltrated by housing activists to the point they now have a candidate running in the Jack Jewett district where Diantha McKeel is not going to seek a fourth term. Albemarle County viewers and listeners, Albemarle County taxpayers, Albemarle County residents, do you want Albemarle County to turn into Fredericksburg or Northern Virginia? You want more traffic, more strain on infrastructure, more congestion at schools, and more children learning in trailers. Because that's what is going to happen if we continue to have housing ramrodded down our throats. You have a developmental area that's at 5%. And as Diantha McKeel said in the Jack Jewett district, on this set, until that 5% is at capacity, why would we expand the 5% even more? And one of the things that makes Albemarle County the beautiful county that we love to live within is the green space, the priority on environment, on hiking, on outside activity that's not tied to vehicle congestion and pollution and traffic and quality of life annoyance. This is an important election, viewers and listeners. An important election. And the same people that are pushing housing in Albemarle County are the same people that were behind this idiotic new zoning ordinance that has manifested and birthed nothing. That is still in court facing lawsuit after lawsuit that has birthed nothing except an increase of money from taxpayers. More money from taxpayers to cover legal fees. A new zoning ordinance that they touted when the zoning was birthed 13, 14 months ago, a year and change ago. We got the best new zoning code ever, new zoning ordinance ever. Everyone who works in the industry, yours truly, John Blair, Deep Throat, we all said this thing is a piece of dog doo. You can't build housing when 10% of units for a project of 10 units or more has to be tied to affordability and AMI for 99 years. The projects that they're building, they don't even anticipate the shelf life of what they're building to last 99 years. We learned that from the guy from Subtext when he was talking about the Verve. He says, we have a ground lease, Subtext, the national developer. He's building 1,300 plus beds by Scott Stadium, right? And he said this, Judah. We have a ground lease with the Canton companies that's in the neighborhood of 90 to 100 years. This hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure that we're building here, we don't even expect it to last that long. Did you hear what he said? Yeah. And the new zoning ordinance expects developers to build projects where what they're building has to be tied to area median income with rent for 99 years. It is the definition of the stupidest thing that I have seen in years in Charlottesville, Virginia. And it's the people that led that charge that are trying to do a similar thing in Albemarle County. And you need to hold them accountable, and you got to push back. Neil Williamson, president of the Free Enterprise Forum, he and I do not see eye to eye on this still. I have tremendous respect and love for him, a man that I would certainly belly up to any bar with and have a cold beer or a bourbon with. He asked the question, do you believe restricting housing will control growth? What about housing affordability? Is 95% rural the magic number? I think how you create housing affordability is by choosing solutions that don't include 4-cent real estate tax rate increases when assessments spiked on average nearly double digits in Albemarle County. I think how you create housing affordability is by optimizing the permitting process so builders can actually get projects done and bring them to market. I think how you create housing affordability is stop allowing perfection to be the enemy of productivity and profitability. Nakiah Walker, I'm talking to you. I think how you create housing affordability is you improve communication and joint venture relationships with the University of Virginia and encourage more students to live on grounds, like second years in the next couple years. Or by encouraging the University of Virginia to be a good steward of the community and start creating a pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes, like we see with Cambridge and Harvard.
Yeah.
I think how you create housing affordability is you be an effing politician and you use the power of the populace, a platform like ours, to bully the University of Virginia if they're not going to move into a payment in lieu of taxes program. And then you take that money and then you do some housing affordability. Altering zoning and ordinances and trying to get involved with the free market is just going to piss people off and screw things up. And that is a fact. And how do you like them apples? Judah Wickower and Jerry Miller.